Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? Jay the Gray here, back with another podcast. It's been quite some time. Apologies for the hiatus. The IRL career has been quite busy as of late, but we are back. I'm currently solo, but luckily I'm on vacation currently, and I'm in sort of a career transition. Hopefully, weekends return, and so does time as well, to where we would return to Saturday streams. Hope you guys are doing well. If you haven't already, for whether you're watching live or watching the recording, make sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. It's greatly appreciated. Gets up in the algorithm, all that good stuff. Yeah, but I'll be taking any questions, folks. Definitely wanted to check in. It's been quite some time. Great time for anime. Finished up solo leveling. Must say, peak aura farming. Simple as that. I have some power scaling video ideas for that as well. I really haven't seen that too much in the community as well. Definitely want to get on that. Again, shout out to Prodigy for sponsoring the next few videos. So you guys aren't aware, Dragon Ball Z will be the topic for the next few videos. If you guys aren't already aware of that. Um, yeah, plenty to discuss. Plenty to discuss. Sarada awakening her MS, big moment. There's already spoilers on Twitter, I believe, about that. I believe the chapter hasn't been released, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Let me go ahead and double check that real quick. Go into Viz real quick. Seen some interesting stuff regarding, the specificities of her ability. So let's go ahead and check here real quick. Yeah, it has not been released as of late. Coming in 2 days. That should be good. Should be good. Definitely want to discuss that real quick. So spoiler alert ahead. Let me pull up the document that I was observing on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, where apparently it's a sort of summary of the coming chapter. Just a second here. I'll be here somewhere. Should have saved it. My apologies, folks. Should be here somewhere. Sarada MS. Gonna look that up real quick. Before you ask any questions, folks, while I look for this, I should have saved it. My apologies again. Let's see here. I believe it is this here. Sarada's power. All right, I believe this should be correct. What's going on, Kedrick? What's going on, brother? Got a lot of questions. Hey, feel free, brother. Nice to see you folks again. It's been quite some time. Consistency will return. I love this game, and I definitely want to continue to do it and interact with you folks. So the consistency to these will return. The content is coming as well. But I hope you guys are doing well. Good to see you again, brother, as well. All right, so this is a document I see on X. Please, if anyone's watching this and if it's incorrect, let me know. So Sarada's power, Mangekyo Sharingan, Irume is gravity. Think Nagato with no drawbacks. She can spam black holes all over and choose who and what will be affected or not. So that's quite the amount of control. So everything affected will be drawn to those black holes, and then she can detonate those black holes at will for massive damage when something makes contact with it. Okay. Interesting. Boruto flashback with Sasuke. Sasuke explained MS to Boruto. Okay, so again, spoiler alerts, folks. Spoiler. All right, so essentially, Sarada's MS ability gives her great control over these black holes. She can choose who's affected by these black holes, so she can literally control the properties of it and can determine who or what is susceptible to these black holes, and then she can detonate them at will. Right? Obviously, the AP of that is what a lot of us are curious about. I'm sure we'll see that in the next chapter. But very, very unique ability, I must say. Different from the Kamui, yet similar, in certain ways. By the way, Batman should be joining us soon, I believe. So let me go ahead and let him know. He's currently busy, but I believe he should be joining us. Shinobi's busy today. Feel free to ask any questions at all, folks. Sports, anime, whatever you guys want to ask, feel free. Give me a second here, folks. All right, let the boy know real quick. All right, we're good to go. Yeah, folks, any questions at all, feel free. Any questions at all here? I like to keep it versatile with the topics. Feel free to ask any questions at all. I appreciate that, Kedrick. W Diss Track. Yeah, I had to do it. I had to do it. Yeah, folks, any questions at all? Feel free. Any questions at all? As far as solo leveling, sometimes simple is good. Solo leveling has a very simple premise, yet very intriguing. Spoiler alert ahead, by the way, for that as well. Solo leveling has one of the most concrete and direct power scaling systems as well. The ranking system that they have amongst hunters and the sort of enemies that they face that aren't human, the spirits or whatever you want to call them. Very direct scaling system, very versatile scaling system. Different types of combatants, the healers, which really isn't a combatant, a non-combatant more so than anything, a healer. You have the assassins, the mages. So very, very interesting and intriguing overall anime. I watched it very quickly, um, quite quickly, as a matter of fact. That's the first time I've binged an anime since Naruto, to be quite honest. It's been quite some time since I've been that intrigued that quickly to that degree. Um, so W Aura Jinwoo is the new Gojo essentially in the anime fandom, and then some, because he was never defeated, at least to my knowledge, the way Gojo was, at the peak of his powers, I should say. But Jin was different than Gojo. He had a rise, right? Gojo was already him from the start of JJK. Jinwoo had to rise to the occasion in multiple ways, from obviously a power scaling standpoint to a mental standpoint. His spirit grew, his confidence, and his motivation is very simple yet admirable. He wanted to make money for his mother and his family. I mean, how much more admirable can it get? You know. Again, simple isn't always bad, you know. In this case, it's very good. Very good indeed. But yeah, folks, any questions at all, please feel free. Any questions at all, feel free to ask here today. Definitely wanted to, get back on it. Thankfully, I'm on vacation currently. The train has been slowed down per se, but it will never be stopped. It's been quite the hiatus, though, I must admit. Depending on the AP and DC, if the black hole can easily be large planetary at the lowest star at mid end and solar system at a high end. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because black holes have the property of absorbing anything that comes in, to the to its radius where its, I guess, suction begins. But the fact that she can detonate these black holes make it even more interesting right? Very, very interesting. And she can determine, who and or what is affected by these black holes that she creates at will, right, with her MS. It's very interesting, and we're gonna have to see some examples here to really determine what the AP/DC is of these black holes, right? Do they function like the black holes that we are familiar with, right? We'll see. What's up, Jay? No, it's late to mention this, but last month I turned 27. Hey, happy late birthday, Sir Goats. Happy late birthday, brother. Certainly an interesting ability that I'm very curious to see, right, and its functionality, really. Um, Sarada, if this ability is done right, will be a contender in the upper echelon of Boruto as far as power scaling is concerned. You know what I'm saying? So we'll have to wait and see. So I've been going through a 4-year breakup. Sorry to hear that, brother. Any advice on how to move forward? I've just been working out and staying busy. Honestly, when it comes to breakups, moving forward is the best course of action. You know, improving yourself, right? Finding new um, goals to strive for, new objectives to be mindful of, right? As you improve, not even the objective itself, but the process in achieving that objective will make you better. Let's say that you fail this objective, whatever it may be. You will be a better person at the end of this process, regardless of whether the objective itself is accomplished. So I would say moving forward, staying busy, like you just said, and becoming resilient mentally. And the way to do that is just to be under stress. Again, working out's a great way. You're under the physical and mental stress of lifting iron, combat sports, mental stimulation via whether it's your career, any sort of resilience building activities will subconsciously help with the breakup. It'll help you be more resilient to the breakup, right? It'll strengthen those neurons, and the neuroplasticity will take full effect in your brain, right? So it's moving forward, moving in the right direction. Sarada can make black holes now? Yep. It's pretty much confirmed by most that I've seen that she can. Very Obito-esque, but not necessarily. Mind you, this is just a bare minimum for where black holes scale regularly. It can be way higher depending on the density and size of it, to be honest. Yeah, and I would predict, when it comes to the documentation that has been released, it seems she can determine the size. Then again, the size isn't even necessary if she can determine who and or what is affected by it, right? Because if she can just determine, oh, this person's affected by it, then it doesn't really matter. But then again, it depends on the actual AP and DC of the black hole itself. How powerful are these black holes? Can a small black hole be enough to, let's say, engulf a mountain, right? So it really determines on the black hole itself and how powerful the black holes she creates at will really are, right? So there's many questions that need to be answered. Thanks for the advice. Helps a lot. Of course, brother, for sure. I like to help all I can, aside from the anime questions and the scaling. Definitely, definitely enjoy it. So, yeah, the mind is a very malleable organ. It's the most malleable. Um, in fact, I've been listening to just a lot of neuroscientists as of late, randomly and purposely, intentionally as well. The mind, it encourages challenge. It encourages stress. In fact, testosterone, right, in the brain, not only does it give you the physical, effects, which is, more hair, higher muscle density, etc., but it actually makes effort feel good. So if your testosterone levels are high, effort will feel good. And it's almost as if it's a biological incentive to produce effort, to challenge yourself. Challenge feels good. And all that points to the fact that you should just attempt to be as healthy as possible biologically, because it really just not only does it, make you feel good physically, it makes you sharper mentally as well. The testosterone, and I even learned of this cortex. I forgot the specific name. Um, it is essentially the willpower part of your brain. Now, according to the study that I heard, again, I'm not an expert in neuroscience, but it's bigger in those that challenge themselves than those that don't. So, for example, athletes have a big, this part of their brain is very large because they're constantly putting themselves in physical challenge. Uh, compared to someone that's, let's say, obese, it's smaller. So it's almost like that part of the brain is your will to live. It's your will to move forward, which is a very interesting discovery that I heard. So it's almost like your brain is incentivizing you to challenge yourself. And obviously, the repercussions of not doing so is mental illness, physical illness, you name it. Very interesting how the biology of humans actually functions. It almost wants to make you challenge yourself. When you learn how the brain and the body really works, it's quite interesting. And it makes sense in theory, you know. What are the top 5 tips you can give to a beginning boxer? Been locked in on boxing for a week, and it's very therapeutic. It is certainly very therapeutic. It's stress relieving. It expedites energy. So, you'll use energy. I would say repetition is probably the number one thing. Repetition, to where your body, adapts to these movements. Your brain deciphers and comes to the conclusion like, oh, these movements are very habitual and very common. Let's make sure the body's doing these properly, right? So repetition is probably the number one thing. And another piece of advice I'd say, which a lot of beginners probably don't know or don't do, is watch great fights. Watch great fighters. Um, Watch their movements. The most nuanced detail can make the difference. The angle changing, the distance, the combinations, the small movements that are determined in the fight by great fighters, defensively and offensively. Watch the smart ones, the Floyd Mayweathers, the Muhammad Ali's, guys like that. The very, very cerebral ones. There you'll learn something because they're being very mindful of their chest moves per se. That's what I would say about that. Watching the more physical fighters, that's God-given talent. Not to say they don't use technique, but someone like Deontay Wilder, for example, does not utilize technique primarily to win his fights. It's his God-given power. That you can't train. You either have it or you don't. So I would say watch the mindful, cerebral fighters. And of course, like I said, a repetition. Um, Aside from that, some smaller but important factors. Cardio, of course. Can't fight if you can't breathe, right? So cardio, implement that however you can. Um, and just flexibility. Make sure you're staying flexible and nimble. Very important, especially when you're doing the dance in the ring. So those are some of the big tips. One more to make it 5. Eat right. You'll feel better. If you're eating like shit when you're sparring, you'll feel heavy, sluggish. Make sure to eat healthy. Eat enough. Hydrate enough. All these things might sound very cliche, but they can make the difference. Recovery, you know, extremely pivotal. It'll help you peak. That's what every fighter wants. They want to peak, right? That's the goal, to reach peak performance. And it's more than just hitting the bag for 12 rounds. It's very, very tactical to reach that peak. Diet, sleep, mental space, mental state, and obviously physical training. So all those tips I would say are very pivotal. But yeah, folks, any questions at all, please feel free. Anime, boxing advice, politics, whatever. I like to discuss it all truly. I enjoy it. So, what boxer would you recommend me watch for a beginner? Honestly, I'd say Floyd. Floyd's probably the best. He's the most cerebral defensively. So defensive fighter, Floyd Mayweather. Offensive, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'd say maybe someone like Hagler. Who, Marvin Hagler was a great offensive fighter. Hitman Hearns, Roberto Duran, um, guys like that. I would say guys that have been through war and know how to mitigate in wars. Guys like that, I would recommend offensively. Defensively, it's not a question. Floyd Mayweather is the best to watch. The small, minute details make the biggest difference to avoiding brain damage, essentially, and he shows that brilliantly throughout his career. If you watch his. It's kind of cool that Sarada abilities to spawn a black hole. Most characters can't counter that. Yeah, just like with Obito, most couldn't counter calmly. Yeah, the majority, as a matter of fact. It's a very broken ability that will jump her into the higher echelon of the power scaling chain, right, in the Boruto verse. Because before that, she couldn't really compete for the most part, especially with the upper echelon characters. Now, there's a better chance, right? Especially with the fact that she can have great control over these black holes. So they're malleable. She can change the properties and determine who and what will and can be affected by this. It's a very thorough ability. So it'll make her role in this a lot more interesting than it was prior. So yeah, folks, if you hear any static or any lag, the internet here, I'm on vacation. It's not as strong as my own, but as rather the internet at home, I should say. So let me know. Donald Trump, the honest truth. Donald Trump is not the worst president of all time. Is he perfect? Absolutely not. It does not exist in our reality. He's done good, mostly, I would say, legislatively. Now, when it comes to unity, that's his big flaw. He's very divisive in his rhetoric. And you could say that could be intentional, that could be unintentional. Maybe he's just appeasing to his crowd, which is obviously right-wing conservatives. Um, speaking in this us and they type of way, right, with this rhetoric, you're just inherently causing unity. There should be no they and us. There should only be a we when you're the president of the free world, when you're the commander in chief, right? So that's his big flaw. His charisma is his making, but his downfall when it comes to unity, right? That's his biggest flaw. The professionalism in which he carries himself is his biggest flaw. It appeals to the conservatives, right? But it does not appeal to the overall masses. His strengths is his ability to compromise, his ability to command respect from other foreign nations, right? Canada, Mexico, Europe, most of Europe, Russia. Putin respects him in comparison to Biden, who he clearly did not. The Ukraine war might not even have happened if Trump was in office. When that's opinionated, but it's very likely. So Donald Trump has his pros and cons. Overall, a decent president. That's my opinion. Will you fight Noodles? That's the plan. Bought him a plane ticket. He said he'd try. He sounded like he was already making excuses about it. He said, you're taking a risk either way, but go ahead and buy it. Sounds like excuses. I had the ticket on a prior stream. Go check it out. I can even post it. The ticket is, well, I'm gonna remove our names so I don't dox myself and him, but the ticket's bought for October. So yeah, the plan is yes, we will fight. That's the plan. Yeah, folks, any questions at all? Please feel free. Please feel free. Let me know if there's any buffering, folks. Again, on the YouTube side of things, it's telling me there isn't enough uh, good connection currently, so but let me know, please. I'll check on my side, as a matter of fact, while I'm here. So he clearly did not. The Ukraine war might not even have happened if Trump was in office. When it's opinionated, but it's very likely. So Donald Trump has his pros and cons. Overall, decent president. That's my opinion. All right, folks. Sounds good on my side. It is lagged to a degree. A few seconds, as a matter of fact, but the connection itself is not buffering, at least from my side. So please let me know if that is the case for you. I'll try to do what I can. But any questions at all, please, folks, feel free. While you guys ask, I'm gonna double check some things here. Let's see here. Video. Okay. Double check here real quick. Any questions at all, though, folks? Any at all? Be careful fighting him. He is tall and you are short. We're the same height, so I don't know where you got that from. I'm actually an inch taller than him. He's 5'11". I'm 6 foot, so I don't know where you got that information. That's incorrect. Almost different weight classes. We're far different. He's fat as fuck, and I'm not. Yeah, that's the big difference. But he lacks his skill. Doesn't really matter. But I'll prepare, regardless. He's not a threat even now at this very moment in time, but I'll still prepare. I'm sure Noodle said I'm short. I don't know why. I'm assuming that's where you got that information. All right, folks, give me a second here. I'm trying to see if I could do anything to enhance the speed here. Let's see. Let's see here. Stream, general. Give me a second, folks. I think we're good to go. We should be okay. Let me know. What comics would you be interested to scale as of now or in the future? Invincible, no doubt about that. In fact, I have an idea in mind for that. Invincible, more of Marvel. I've done some on my other channel. By the way, go subscribe to that. It's been kind of inactive, but I want to get back on that. Marvel, DC, and Invincible. Those are the top three for sure. What's your favorite boxing match of all time? All time? Maybe the Thriller in Manila. Uh, maybe all of the Ali versus Frazier's. Foreigner versus Ali is a great one. You want to see a war? Some wars, some great wars. Gotti versus Ward, very good. I'm biased, but some master classes by Floyd. Not competitive, just to see his brilliance. Mayweather versus Canelo. Mayweather versus Garcia. Um, many of Duran's fights. Duran versus Sugar Ray Leonard. The first one, brilliant display by Duran rather. Hagler Hearns, beautiful fight. It's a tough choice, but those are up there for me. I've seen all 6 of Cobra Kai seasons. It was fire. That show is peak aura. I enjoyed making videos. I still could, but obviously, as far as the trend of that, it's died down because it's now completed, right? So, but I do love Cobra Kai. I've loved the Karate Kid verse since I was a child. So, by the way, if anyone's in Noodles in his server, whatever, I messaged him to let me know when we can do a stream pre-fight press conference. He hasn't answered. I'm assuming he's intimidated, scared. But let him know that he can come on. He can let me know. We can make it happen. We can do face cams. His fat ass can look me in the eye, by the way. So please, feel free to let him know. I have no problem with that. Put face cams down. He can use that fucking clown paint to make him, to show his true colors, and we can talk some shit. Give you guys some entertainment. If he intends to fight me, that is. If he's truly set on fighting me. Hawk and Kenny are my characters. Peak Hawk was probably season 3. I mean, in his villain arc, and then season 4 was his overall prime, winning the tournament. I know the All Valley. Kenny, his aura grew very quickly. Great potential. Silver took him under his wing. It was, those guys are pretty peak. Yeah. My favorite character overall, probably Miguel. Some of the high peaks, well, Quan, can't really go wrong with that guy. That guy was Aura, in season 6, part 2. Who was the best fighter in Cobra Kai? Student wise, Miguel. Miguel is the best. Sensei wise, it's gonna always be Miyagi-Do. The writers themselves said that, but aside from him, I mean, the writers themselves says Daniel and Johnny are equals. Chosen, that's a good one. Yeah, I think it's Chosen. That's a fair selection. He is Miyagi-Do to its fullest extent. He was in Okinawa for the majority of his life. He knows the offensive secrets that Daniel only discovered in season 2 when he went to Okinawa. I honestly don't have a problem with that selection. It's between the trio, Chosen, Johnny, and Daniel. And I don't blame anyone for picking either of the three amongst them. You know, my opinion, it's between Johnny and Daniel, in my opinion. But Chosen could probably beat them as on any given day. So they're obviously all quite relative, but yeah, Miguel is clearly the best. You know, of the younger generation. It was meant to always be him. He was the Karate Kid of this generation. So yeah, folks, any questions at all? I enjoy the versatility. I enjoy the stirring the melting pot of any fandom, really. So, been a good year for media. I've said this throughout the year, but it's been a great year for media, from anime to movies to great TV shows. It's been quite the year so far. It's been quite the year. The best year that I can remember in quite some time for media in general. Definitely much to discuss. There's been much to discuss this entire year, and hopefully that doesn't change. You know. Yeah, folks, make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, by the way. I really appreciate that. Any questions at all, though? Any questions at all? You gave it to Chosen because he has better feats in season 5. That's fair. Definitely fair. Cobra Kai was a great, it was a great series. Aura of it just kept, being farmed, essentially, and it ended on a great note. Need help with DC scaling DC and Marvel ass Jobbers and Goons. Jobbers and Goons is a great content creator, yeah. He's familiar with both their scaling. Yeah, I've seen some of his videos. He does great content. Daniel versus Sensei Wolf. Essentially, if Johnny Bloodluster was able to defeat Sensei Wolf, then I would conclude it's very likely that Daniel would, as the writers have determined they are relative. So I would say Daniel Bloodlusted would beat Sensei Wolf. You could counter me to be fair and say, well, Daniel's more defensive, right, than Johnny was. He's not as aggressive. It's not in his nature, and that's fair. But I would determine Daniel. Yeah, folks, any questions at all? Feel free. Any questions at all here? This stream probably won't be as long, but more than likely, I'm not going to promise, more than likely there will be another one tomorrow, and it should have the whole gang here. I want to give you guys, make up for the time that I've been gone, um, and hopefully in the next couple months, maybe even before that, back to Saturdays. Hopefully I'll have those days back. Those are the best days it seems for you and for the gang here for us. So I hope that's the case. Consistency will return. I'm not going anywhere. I really appreciate you guys sticking by us all this time. If it weren't for you guys, we'd just be you know, some guys on YouTube talking to the screen. So I really appreciate you guys, and that'll always be the case. I really appreciate you guys for sure. But more than likely, I'll say there should be a stream tomorrow, and the internet will be better. We should have the whole gang. Maybe we'll do a tier list or something. We'll see, but more than likely there will be one tomorrow. Yes. Johnny versus Daniel characters. Whew, man. I'll say this. More times than not, currently, with the current versions of Johnny and Daniel we have, I'd truly, I would say Johnny would win slightly more times, and here's why. He's been more seasoned, right? If we're talking about the point right at the end of Cobra Kai, he's more well trained. He's peaked, right? But scratch that, not more well trained. He's been training more than Daniel has, right? Daniel wasn't preparing for a fight. His mental state is in a different place than Daniel's was, right? Down the gi, right at the end of Cobra Kai. So they have different mental states. So I would say Johnny would probably win more times than Daniel at the end of Cobra Kai. That's what I would say at this point in time. I thought you were short because of your lean, slim physique. Oh, yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'm actually taller than Noodles by an inch, but still taller. foot. So almost basically the same height. I mean, it's only an inch. But yeah, folks, any questions at all? Please feel free. Feel free. It's been too long. Gotta shake the rust off. But yeah, Johnny versus Daniel. I truly think Johnny would win slightly more times than not. You know, based on their mental states, based on who's been training more rigorously, etc. At the end of Cobra Kai. Right, so it might change with this new Karate Kid film coming out in May. We'll see. We have some new feats that Johnny didn't have. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But as of the end of Cobra Kai, I'd say Johnny's slightly superior at that point in time. Any questions at all, though, folks? Any questions at all? In other news, as you guys keep asking questions, the UFC has ended. The deal that the UFC had with ESPN came to an end. I hope this is the case that UFC may sign with Netflix, and the pay-per-view model may disappear as a result of that. We got glimpses of what that would have been like with Jake Paul versus Tyson, um, WWE, right? It's now on Netflix. It seems to be exploding, etc. Please record the fight. It's going to be live streamed, at least on my side. I'm going to live stream me whipping his ass. So I'm going to try my best to live stream that. There's no question who's going to win. No question. There's no edits, no nothing. We'll show the whole fight from beginning to end. I'll say, Jay, you'd be surprised how strong both DC and Marvel are. Oh, yeah. I know that at the top of the scaling chain, you got omnipotents, you got hyperversal individuals, you know, you got the highest classification of power scaling at the top of each verse. God, essentially. The presence and the one above all. Right? So, not surprised at all. And just the decades of literature in both these verses, and you just have a plethora of characters. Dimitri versus Kenny. Kenny. Kenny displayed greater feats during the Sekai Taikai than Dimitri ever did. Kenny, when they were doing the circling with two dojos participating, and each person, one person from each dojo rather, fighting in the middle of the circle, right? That part, Kenny performed much better. Dimitri worked alongside Hawk, right, to attempt to wear down. I believe it was. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Actually, I'm drawing a blank. Hawk and Dimitri. I believe it was Yoon, right? If I'm not mistaken. But at another point in time, when Kenny was present, I believe Kenny was able to quite casually defeat a Sekai Taikai captain, right? So one on one, Kenny is more skilled than Dimitri, I would say. Kenny, in the version of Kenny in the Sekai Taikai is more skilled. Peak Hawk versus Kenny, that's an interesting fight. I'd probably lean with Hawk, but that, in my opinion, that was more interesting than Dimitri versus Kenny. Cobra Kai scaling is great though. It's been, it was a pleasure scaling it, and the lore and everything is just so well done. The decades of lore that has existed for the Karate Kid verse has been great. You know, it's a shame that we never got Prime Miyagi versus Prime, founder of Cobra Kai. Maybe in a spinoff, we'll have obviously alternate actors do that, but that'd be quite cool to see. But yeah, going back to the UFC thing, it would be quite monumental if UFC were to sign with Netflix and they killed the pay-per-view model. It might incentivize other organizations to do the same. But as far as content, I do want to bring back clips. The time has just been marginal at best as of late. But I want to bring back podcast clips. There's always some that I have in mind while the podcasts are being streamed, so you guys can go and watch that. Those will be in the second stream. Stream is lagging. Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. The internet here, again, I'm on vacation, isn't as good as my home internet, unfortunately. Maybe if I lower the bit rate. Give me a second here, folks. Not just that, but you'd be surprised I was trying to lower mid tiers Marvel DCR. Most people really haven't covered these tiers yet. Yeah, I could see that, right? The most intriguing, I guess, to casuals, especially, are the upper echelon, right? They're intrigued by their power for the most part. Besides the iconic characters like Spider-Man and individuals like that. When you see top 10 lists, people are always intrigued by that, right? Top 10 Marvel characters, top 10 anime characters. It intrigues the masses. Even the casuals want to know, oh, who's the strongest? Who's amongst the strongest, right? So naturally, the lower tier characters don't get that shine. They don't get that attention, right? For the most part. Let me check my stream real quick, folks. See if it's lagging on my side still. Go ahead and check real quick. Hmm. Wait a second, folks. As far as content, I do want to bring back clips. Time has just been marginal at best. All right, seems smooth right now. Let me know if it's still straight lagging, folks. I'll try to do what I can. Yeah, comic book characters are always great to scale. All the literature that exists on some of these characters, it's abundant, and obviously continuities matter. You gotta pick the continuity for the specific character that you want to scale, right? Because that could vary greatly, clearly. Any questions though, folks? Any questions? We got a few more minutes here. Any questions at all? But yeah, overall, again, great year for media. Definitely been a great year so far. From anime to the box office, the TV shows, been great. Good to see media thriving. Humans need stories. Stories serve many purposes aside from entertainment, right? Inspiration, uh, information. There's so many reasons for there to be stories. Eli versus Kenny, peak to peak. Eli. I tell Eli would take it more times than not. Eli just has the better feats to show for it. You know, the explosiveness. So far, so good. Okay, good. Good to see. Good to see. Apologies though, folks. I should have brought my Ethernet cable. That might have given a more consistent connection as well. That's my fault. A little rust, as you could tell, when it comes to the content creation, but that will be shaked off. You know, I will continue to do what I enjoy, what I enjoy to do, and what I hope you guys enjoy to watch. So try my very best to continue that. But again, if anyone ever wants a custom video, feel free to DM me and let me know. I'll give a fair price. Can be, any anime, any fiction, basically any fiction topic for the most part, or combat sports related. Um, so yeah, to keep that in mind. Good to be back, though, I must say. Good to be back. I always enjoyed it, even back in the day when I was by myself, talking to like one concurrent viewer. It was always a good time. I genuinely enjoy it. Truly do. But yeah, folks, any final questions, please feel free. Again, more than likely there will be another stream tomorrow, so keep that in mind. I'll most likely schedule it as well once I'm sure, and you guys will see it. Zara versus Sam. Now that would have been interesting. That would have been interesting, no doubt about it. Truly, I believe peak Sam is closer to Tori than peak Zara is to Tori. And I think the lore itself sort of implies that. Um, the short skirmish they had in the Sekai Taikai sort of implies that to an extent. Clearly, they weren't at their peak nor bloodlusted. However, I would say Sam, with her experience, with the fact that relativity has been shown consistently throughout the series between her and Tori, I would more than likely say Sam bloodlusted would defeat Zara. Now, if Sam isn't in the right headspace, she wouldn't defeat her. Clearly, we saw that with Tori as well. She was defeated earlier in Sekai Taikai. Uh, so I would determine Sam bloodlusted. What's going on, Project? Good to see you, brother. You alone today? Yep, just like the old times. But the show got to continue. Definitely good to be back. Good to see y'all as well. Consistency, I hope, returns soon. But it's definitely good to see you, brother. Again, appreciate the love for the sponsorship. That will be done. Man of my word. It's definitely get that done, and definitely excited to explore the Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball verse again. It's been quite some time. But yeah, today it's solo. Double checking the stream real quick, folks. Make sure not lagging. Again, apologies for the poor internet quality. That's my fault. All right, sounds like it's good on my side. Checking the stream here, so. Any questions though, folks? Any questions at all? Please feel free. Martial art for both versus interesting, minus obvious ones the casuals know of. Right, right. Something about martial arts makes combatants more intriguing, right? The techniques, the art form, rather than just brute power, right? There's definitely an appeal to that. Yes, sir. Take your time on that the vids, no worries. I appreciate you, brother. Definitely gonna make sure it's good quality. Definitely got you on that. Me and Sean will definitely get it done. But yeah, folks, that might wrap it up here. I'll take a few more questions. So just some reminders. Consistency will return. For there to be balance, there has to be some turmoil. Not turmoil, but some challenges. IRL career has been very busy as of late. However, there's some changes that are very beneficial soon. Weekends should return soon. Um, and I could just do better. I could always do better as well. Time management, it's good, but could always be better. For you guys, I genuinely enjoy making content. So that will continue. Nothing will stop this train. I appreciate all the support from you folks. I really do. Again, if it weren't for you guys, I'd just be some guy talking to a screen. So I really appreciate you guys, and that will continue. That will continue. Content will continue being made to the best to the best quality I can possibly make it. Um, Again, Dragon Ball videos will be what is coming next. Man of my word, and that will be next. Again, shout out to Prodigy for that. I do want to bring back clipping. I want to do things more consistently. Been kind of hectic, but I'm working hard to, make that not the case, to where more content will continue on a consistent basis. But I really appreciate you folks. Again, more than likely there will be a stream tomorrow. I'd say I'm about 80% sure. Even if I'm alone, I probably will make it happen. Even if, Batman and Shinobi can't make it again, more than likely that will be the case. Nothing will stop the train. Nothing. So appreciate you folks. Take it easy and expect a stream more than likely tomorrow. Much love to y'all, and I'll see you next time, folks. Peace.